First, we're going to talk about audio. Now, the word audio means more or less sound. Okay? So, we have to start at the very beginning and talk about what sound is. Sound is just air molecules squishing through the air and hitting your ears with the same pattern that the air is getting squished. And some of it's going faster, some of it's going slower. If the air is going back and forth at least 20 times a second, try doing that with your hands. Ready, go. 1001. No, can't do it. But if you could, you'd start hearing this super, super low sound. Now, if the air is going back and forth 20,000 times a second, that's like the fastest you can hear it. Sounds like that kind of screechy dog whistly, somebody's frying an egg on top of your head sort of sounds. But what do we mean by airwaves? Well, let's go to Grog's cave. Okay, so here's Caveman Cave. Right, and let's see, there's Grog standing. Let's have him stand over to one side. That's a caveman. Okay. So Grog is in his cave. And let's say there's no sound. If there's no sound, we've got all these air molecules inside the space. And it's a closed space. Let's say Grog has his door closed. It's his rock rolled up against the entrance. So no air can come in, no air can come out. I'll have to open that in a little while if he's breathing. Okay, but my point is here, if there's no sound, all of the air molecules are just kind of hanging out, equally spaced. But as soon as you start making sound, like let's say I make a clap, bam, that force makes some of these notes squeeze together leaving space in between where there's hardly any air molecules. So, and of course this is kind of going across the room. We're making it seem like it's just at one moment in time right now. But the point is that when you make a sound, you're starting to make these airwaves happen. There's going to be places, we have the same number of molecules in the room, but some places they're squished together, and in those places where those molecules came from to get squished together, there's like extra space, extra unsquishedness, okay? So the way we're going to make a graph to show how that's happening is like this. We'll have, let's say, that's our 0 line. If anything's 0, that's a place where all the air molecules are all equally spread apart, right? But if there's a place where they're all really squished together, we'll call that positive. And then if there's a place where it's like they've been sucked out of there because they got squished together with these other spots, we'll call that minus. So you can see how there's places where they're totally squished together, we'll call that the top of the wave. And then the places where they're farthest away from those most squished together places, which means they're the most unsquished together places, the least amount of air molecules there, the most amount of molecules there, and back and forth. Now that's a really, really simple graph. Life is not that simple. But I'm simplifying it right now just so you can understand that when we draw a waveform like that, which is how the computer is going to, and other electronic instruments, that's how they're going to make a graph to describe what's going on with the sound in the air. And remember, you gotta have air to make sound. If there were no air molecules in there, then sound wouldn't exist because it doesn't have anything to travel across. If I clap that in space, then maybe, well, if I was in like a spacesuit bubble and I went like that, then I could hear the sound from all the oxygen and whatever inside my spacesuit bubble. But if, let's say, I just had a little helmet on and like a suit that's around me, I'm spacewalking, and I clap, there's no sound because there's no air around me in space for to get squished and unsquished, squished and unsquished. It just can't happen. Okay, so let's talk next about how we first started recording these air waves getting squished. And remember, the fastest we can hear, well, let's say slowest to the human ear is about 20 times per second. And when we say 20 times per second, we call that a 20 hertz. 1 time per second, if the air was going squish, squish, 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, that would be 1 hertz. We wouldn't be able to hear that because it's not squishing, unsquishing through the air fast enough for us to hear. It's got to be doing that 20 times a second for us to hear the lowest sounds. I called this slowest, but remember, lowest means slowest. Whereas highest, I tell the kids, low where the elephants sing, high where the birdies sing. The highest stuff we can hear is the fastest waves in the air. And to the human ear, we say 20, we could say 20,000 hertz, but we just write it K because in metric, K means 1,000, 20 kilohertz. Okay, so next we're going to talk about how we first started recording music, the sound I should say, how we first started recording sound with electricity and magnets before we had computers.